soldiers from the sky, fearless men who jump and die, men who do just what they say, the brave men of the Green Beret, silver wings.
Thanks for joining the United Constitutional Patriots radio show. Tonight, Johnny will not be here to host the show, so Chuck will be doing it. So it'll be Chuck and Patriot Cowgirl will be doing the show tonight. I will now turn the mic over to Chuck. So here's Chuck. Go ahead, Chuck.
Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this, our Monday evening, September the 3rd, 2000. Momentarily, I will be bringing on one of our team members here. Here at United Constitutional Radio, here at the Discord, we call her Patriot Cowgirl. And we will be bringing her, and she will be bringing on our special guest for the evening. And she will be taking care of that part of the show, and then I will be back following our guest after he lays out what he has, information that he has to give us. Should be very interesting. I will be back shortly, and some very interesting information to go along with that. I'll just give you a clue. Get your popcorn ready. I will be back with that later. Again, we're glad you all could join us. Thank you for being here, and we hope. And now we will we'll turn it over to Patriot Cowgirl, who will have the honor to
just a little. We were going to have Kenny Andelhort from in Texas. He took the BLM to court and he beat him. The BLM was kicked out of the state of Texas because of his lawsuit. And we were also going to have the Bundys, Clive and Ammon and Ryan. But instead of tonight, we're going to have them on Wednesday night show at 5 Pacific time. So you want to be sure and tune into that because that's going to be very... Tonight we're going to have Eddie Johnston of New.org Constitution, and he's also bringing lawsuits against politicians all over the country for their corruption. And we need to pray that he beats this and gets his message across the United States. So I would like to introduce our guest, Eddie Johnston.
John, you got to hold the button down.
We do educational seminars on Oregon Packers YouTube every Saturday and Sunday. And what I'm doing right now is I just got through serving all the sheriff deputies and the sheriffs in the 36 counties. And I will be serving the 36 county commissioners coming up. But I served them an affidavit of fact of what the law is, what their job description is. The one thing that if you ever do a lawsuit, you want to prove the judge has a constitutional oath, you want to have the bond that he's supposed to be required. But see, this is your responsibility. The courts don't work for you until you realize the courts don't work for you. They work for themselves, and that's the way it is. The injured man or woman has to bring charges forward. You cannot go to a district attorney. You cannot go to a state police officer or police officer because they work for the corporation. Alter it. Because you don't want it to be a complaint. A complaint is a one. It looks like Columbus never came to the United States. So when you start putting these things together and you start realizing how we've been so boggled by these elected and public employees for the personal financial gain. And one of the things I served on as sheriffs was, can they prove? Because federal law says you don't need a hunting and fishing license, but But I want to clarify that so people comprehend what it means under the 13th and 14th Amendment. The 13th and 14th Amendment is not what you were told. Most people don't even know how to read the administrative bills or court cases. They interpret them. No offense to those religious people, they do it just like a Bible. You do not interpret, period. You cannot interpret. You have to go by the Constitution when you read these things, and you have to see what they have altered themselves. Because if they start putting stuff in with a low C, that means under the 14th Amendment, you are a United States citizen and you have no rights. If you're claiming to be a United States citizen, technically you have no rights. Because United States citizens are owned by the Banking Corporation, Inc. And that's part of your birth certificate. And this is the thing that when you start realizing how all this stuff works, you start going, holy mackerel. Before I start getting into a little bit of things, I don't want to get too deep because I don't want to get people lost. But I do recommend a movie called Interstate 60 out there. I do recommend people watch it twice. It is a comedy, and you'll see how your court system works. Because when you go to court, you're going into a religious court system. It is no different than the Christian Crusades when you went into the Christian Crusades and they decided to chop you up whenever they wanted and how they wanted to punish you. It is the same then as it is today. And basically it's comparable to Nazi Germany because it's the same structure because the Roman Catholic Church, if you ever look at the Vatican's robes and the Pope's robes, they all have the Nazi symbols on them. And that goes all the way back to before the Treaty of 1213 from England, not American. The Magna Carta is England, not American. And this is where people get confused when they go in and file the paperwork because they get being told all these things you need to do, but nobody goes to the Constitution and reads the Constitution is the law of this land with the Indian treaties. Everything else has no bearing in what you are doing. And the Constitution and it states in the 14th Amendment and laws that I have done, and I've filed this with the Congress, and it's been filed with the Supreme Court, and it's been proven by their own administrative rules and writings that you have to be 5 or more generations to be lawful bloodline native in this country, or unless you are an immigrant. Follows under immigration laws. And this is why everybody's pitting it when Trump is doing it. The illegals out here under, what is that federal law? USC 1182. The president has authority to block anybody coming into this country. Mommy, daddy, children, whatever, separate them, whatever. Not our problem. They shouldn't come here, period. That's not our issue. We have to protect our bloodline. Because the only thing that's keeping the Constitution intact right now today, and if it wasn't for Trump being in office, we would be right now fighting the British government. That's a fact, because Hillary already had a contract with the Queen of England if she would have won. So when you go back and look at the history of what countries have been trying to take us over, and we're still battling when it comes down to Britain and Spain, and if you comprehend the situation with the United Nations was formed by the British government and Nazi Germany. And everybody's going, well, Trump is pulling out and he wants to do this and, stop sending money to these other countries and start pulling out and everybody's crying across the country. Yeah, because once he starts the funding, immigration has to go because all that funding that's going to the other countries are paying those employees in this country of the jobs that we are supposed to have. So this is why when I put this affidavit against the sheriff, because they're the ones that are releasing people, illegals back on the street that shouldn't be shipped to ISIS immediately. They are covering up for the situations on the street, and so are the police. Because remember, the police make a contract from the police academy, and then when they take a job at the city and county and state, they sign an administrative role contract. So now they are actually the Vatican, British government, IRS, bankers, tax collectors. If you really know law enforcement, and I have all the administrative rules, I have all the structure backing us up. It's all over my website. I do produce this stuff when I put my affidavits together, because I never write a complaint. I always write affidavits with criminal charges. Because if you do not file criminal charges on the cop that pulled you over, arrested you, and he didn't arrest you. He kidnapped and held you for ransom. That's called child trafficking or human trafficking. And if a child's involved, they go to DHS. That's child trafficking. And this is how these guys make their money. And then we're supposed to sit there and feel guilty, and everybody says, "Oh, no offense, but go pray, go do this," and it's like, no, you have to go back to the source and comprehend that these men and women don't have rights. They are privileged personnel, and if you haven't read the 1938 Foreign Administration Registration Act, that means every elected public servants and every immigrant has to mandatory be registered. That's why Mueller is going to prison. That's why Trump had to fire two of his attorneys right off the bat when he was opening up the investigation, because two of his own personal attorneys that worked with him for 35 years were not registered. So, that's the one thing that we have these things in place. It's like people don't realize that some of the forefathers and elders put stuff in place. They comprehended what the Constitution meant. We are a republic form of government. There's nothing to do with the double structure of democracy. Democracy is Vatican religious control. And that's the one thing that when we start stepping out of the movie, as I say, that's what I say, step out of the movie, watch the word outside, see how it goes. When you start doing that, the things start coming together, and you start looking at things in a totally different light, too, compared to what you did. If you open your mind and you start reading the administrative rules, the Constitution, the structure, because immigration law actually goes back to 1774. And people don't realize that. They go, "Oh, no, this was just new." And then with Ellis Island, it goes back. And with Ellis Island, they weren't supposed to let Muslims in at all, because that goes back to Thomas Jefferson. And that's been proven all the way up, including in the 1952 Administration Immigration Act. Muslims are banned 100% because they rape, rob, and pillage, and their religion encourages it. So that's the one thing that we don't want those type of people in our country, and we have a right not to allow them. The United States is not the 48 states. Remember, Alaska and Hawaii technically are not part of we the people. Alaska and Hawaii and Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico is the IRS capital. But Alaska and Hawaii are only in this country by administrative rules. That's it. We have no control technically over that country at all, or even Alaska is not even supposed to have police or Mounties or anything in that state. It's supposed to be still a free-run state, so is the Northwest here. And so they've been putting all this stuff in to control us, so that way they can not only take away our rights, but force us into some type of religion belief. So now we're kneeling instead of standing and looking a man or a woman face to face. Everybody's supposed to be bowing, and that's what they want us to do, is they don't want you to stand up with pride. And I do have that. I spent 15 years of my life with the Oregon State House of Senate. I was a guy in the background. I did get blessed helping some senators out and state representatives. I was blessed because I had some bills with my own name that went in. And remember, when a bill goes in, it's a billing instrument. That's why they call it a bill. It's like when you go to the store, you get a bill for the groceries. And you get the bill for your restaurant tab. And that's the same thing when they pass a Senate bill. They're trying to figure what fees they can raise, how they can come after you, and what they can take of your personal property. And this is what I just served the sheriffs, going, they don't have rights to take people's homes under foreclosures. So if you end up in something like that, and before you get to the end point where they're coming knocking on your door, you want to start filing identity theft. You want to start filing charges on these men and women for threatening you. If they come to your home and threatening you with a sidearm on them. Because I talk about sidearms, that's, what they have. We have arms. And in arms, I mean, it could be a tank, a bazooka, whatever it is, they can't regulate it under the Constitution. And people say, well, no, they didn't have machine guns back in the 1700s. The Bunkle machine gun was fully operational, and that was in I think it was 1712. So, I mean, they already had these things. And if you go back even to China, they had machine guns, and they were, back then, they were arrow launchers. And that was another form of machine gun. So this stuff has been around. But see, we're get an attack on it because, see, they're still trying to take over this country for the attorneys and the Queen of England. Because when your Social Security and everybody's panicking over that, Social Security has $70 billion in reserves that it is not touched, will not be touched. But Social Security, William Jefferson Clinton signed the payee of Social Security over to the Queen of England. So the money that you pay into Social Security is a private contract. And everybody runs around and says Social Security is a government agency. William Jefferson Clinton turned that into a government agency when he was president. The contract, even before and during and after he signed it over, but he only signed the payee parts over the Queen of England. But that's why when you get your Social Security, if you do decide to do that for a child, and that's your decision as an adult. But see, I don't believe in registering your kids with the state and stuff. And if you do get a birth certificate, make sure it's not filed in the hospital. Make sure it's not filed in the Secretary of State's office. Make sure it's not filed at all. Because the minute birth certificate in the federal government or your state elections office or your state clerk's office or your county clerk's office, you just gave authority for the state to take your child at will. That's how DHS legally comes into your home without a warrant, because you signed your child over to the Department of, the Bar Association and the State Attorney General. You said you were not a responsible parent. And that's exactly what the laws read. I have the laws up on new.org trackers. When you go on the Facebook front of new.org tracker, you'll see the medical contract for the children. To file and own your bloodline. If you don't own your child, the state can take your child. It's owning your property. If you don't, people don't know you own your property. If you haven't filed on your land or like your covered wagon, people call it a vehicle. But see, registration of vehicles and all that is voluntary. It says that each and every state. Each and every state says that, to have a driver's license for commercial use only. Like Oregon, it's got, and I'm fighting with them, and that's why I filed one of the sheriffs, and I'm getting ready to file on the county commissioners, and they'll do it in all the cities. But I'm proving this point because I'm nailing them with their own administrative rules. The saddest part is people don't read stuff. They do what they're told. It's like we grew up. You need a driver's license. So everybody runs to DMV and gets a driver's license, and they turn their constitution rights to travel, to fish, to hunt, over to DMV. You don't even realize it. People are not being told this stuff. So you're giving your rights over to these men and women. That's why they call them your representatives. And it's like we do on our talk show, and I tell a lot of people, if you're going to go to court, make sure you send a certified letter to the representative of your district and make sure he's representing you, because he's supposed to represent you in court. And technically, he's supposed to take the blunt. Because a living man, unless he's done murder or a major crime, or a woman has done a major crime, property damage, or harmed another life of another living man or woman. Person is a dead entity. Person, and people argue with me all this time. And look up the word person, even in administrative rules, and even the Supreme Court, and I have those decisions going all the way back to 1799. And a person was determined, it's an inanimate object that does not exist. The only people that exist is a living man or woman. So if you're not living, you don't exist. That's why they call it birth certificate, the dead man's hand. They got a lot of names for it. You all heard them. And this is putting the pieces together of how these things come together and work. So when you start seeing how these things work, and when you're putting your affidavits together, because you always have to put an affidavit together, you can't just call the police up and make a complaint, because it's whining and that's hearsay evidence, and that's why police reports are not taken. And that's where people don't get it. I've done a lot of filings around the country on some of these men and women that have murdered and harmed people on the streets. I've watched their videos. I've done some research, and then I write the agency a little letter. And next thing you know, you see these things change. You can personally charge men and women, police officer, for assault and battery. You can personally charge them for taking your covered wagon. You can personally charge them for child abuse and theft of your child. I mean, it's funny, or not really funny, it's sad, because I talked to a lot of people about this, and people say, well, I don't want to file these charges on these people. I'll let God take care of it. Well, you ain't going to have your kids. They're going to have it adopted out in the next 3 weeks. So, if you don't start filing these charges and standing up and learning how the system works from the inside, that's why our system is running wild right now today, doing all this stuff because nobody's standing up to the system. And it's like I've had people say, well, do you need an army? Well, I need a minimum of 5 to 10 million people if I'm going to do something like that. But the other point, I would much rather have those people file the criminal complaints, following the structure on the budget. That's where the money is. Because when you pay anything on a public employee structure, library books or anything, late fees and all that, that's our money that is supposed to come back to us. And when it goes through administrative rules, they can only write off a percentage of administrative rules, and that's it. They can't write off for their parties, personal vacations, any of that stuff. But that has been allowed in the last 25 to 30 years. The Democrats have been opening this up, so have some of the Republicans, or we call them rhinos. That's why I want to get rid of both parties. There should be no party at all. Period. Nothing. Because if we're going to be voting, and the only thing that we're supposed to vote for, technically, is if we want to have higher taxes to build a road or so. But we don't have to do that because the money is already in the gas tax. When you register your vehicle, the uninsured motorist fund is already paid in that, so you're not supposed to pay insurance. I've got videos up with me senators with them, hey, Ed, we already spent the money. Well, we can always track the money down. They spent billions of dollars. They took billions of dollars and siphoned it off into their accounts. And I've done this. I've recalled government bodies. I've proved where they embezzled money, and they've tried to take me out, the state attorney general, the local district attorneys. And see, when it comes down to it, you just got to realize you can't go after them for personal vendetta, as the people call it. The Bible says, "Do unto others, you want others to do unto you." Okay. Well, they destroyed my family, did things to me, tried to take me out several times, and those videos are up, threatening me in court and public and everything else. And so I decided to go learn the system from the inside out. No, I am not an attorney or lawyer. I do not believe in the British government. I do not believe in any structure that came from any foreign country to this country. I am a lawful bloodline Native American. And when people go to court and the judge will ask you, well, what race are you or what color are you? And realize the Constitution has no race structure in it at all. It says man or woman. Where the hell does color come into the place? So stop getting wrapped up in a psychological babble bullshit. Because that's all it is. So if they keep you arguing about Democrats, Republicans, about so-called racism, racism was developed by the TV set in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. There was some in different parts of this country, but it was nothing like what they're trying to make up on their statistics. I mean, I literally grew up in the streets of San Francisco in the 60s and 70s, and then part of the 80s. And everybody says all this stuff was going on. I grew up there. I mean, so long as you didn't go on somebody's turf and try to harm one of them or their family members, nobody messed with anybody. That's the one thing. But we get taught all this fear. So this is why I'm filing these instruments on these men and women, which I've got to amount to a few people in the group here. Hopefully they'll share them out, because I want you to read what the law says, what the Constitution really says. It was my talk show starting this Sunday night. We already started it. We're going to be on the Third Amendment, because every Sunday for the next 25 weeks, I'm going over each amendment. I'm going over what is legislative amended, what they call Constitution amended law, and the ones that have been passed by administrative law that has no bite. Even the 16th Amendment, people say the 16th Amendment was passed and ratified. No, it's a lie. And if you type in on YouTube, former IRS director says Exhibit 51-52 states that all taxes are voluntary and you have the congressional record. There's your evidence. And they have the evidence in the records if you want to withdraw. Because when you pay state and federal income tax and property tax, it goes to the Queen of England. Your money doesn't stay here. See, this is the one thing that we get taught about all this stuff that we think how the system is working for us. They're writing off most of the stuff off your birth certificate and straw man accounts. When you go, and people say, oh, that don't exist. Yes, it does, folks. It's called Executive Order 2040 by FDR. So, and I encourage you, I have all this stuff on my website. I have the bankruptcy stuff with the British government, went bankrupt to we the people. This country is not in debt. And the only way we're in debt is if you run a credit card, and if you're buying cars and everything on credit. That's the national debt. That's what you have to pay, what you owe. So you're increasing that for the British government. And so when you use the money, when you go in and pay off a fine and you use dollar bills, and we have that on the website too, it's federally a crime to use federal notes, because federal notes can only be used technically by elected and public employees and registered church members and contractors. And that's the IRS code and stuff, but people don't read it. If you want a good video to watch on the IRS, theft by deception. It's an hour and 27-minute video, and they'll walk you through the IRS code. The guy does an extremely wonderful job on it. He actually walks you through the numbers of the IRS code, show you where it is in the IRS code and what they have done. And it's like a driver's license. You know, we're told we have to go get a driver's license. The only ones that are required by a legislative administrative rules to have a driver's license are elected and public servants, registered church members, registered voters, and all immigrants. Illegals have no rights even to food. Legal immigrants technically have no rights to food because technically if the legal immigrants come to this country, even by federal constitutional law, they're supposed to support themselves. It's like if you go to another country, there's no welfare, there's none of that stuff. And if you cannot afford to take care of yourself and pay your bills, they throw you out of the country. They do it everywhere else in the world. In the United States, and they got the Pope out there screaming, take your refugees, have forgiveness for these people. Well, I mean, I won't give my thoughts on the Pope, but it's filed on its own. It is filed and registered with the Queen of England in Rome. It's knowing what our history is compared to what we're led to believe. So we've got these things in place. So when you start realizing how you go after your public employees and file criminal charges, you start going after them for their homes. They can be sued. There is no law that protects a judge. There is no law that protects any elected and public servants. And I can prove it beyond a shadow of a doubt. They have administrative rules that they pass, but they go by they tell people, well, there's nothing we can do, but people don't educate themselves. They don't stand up. They don't say no. This guy committed a crime. It's like I'm still going after Oregon State Governor, and I've got indictments that are being filed on her, because I filed on her for treason, racketeering, fraud, impersonating a public official. She's born in Spain, and everybody's telling me, well, her parents were in the military, so she could be the governor. Oregon State and the federal Constitution says you have to be naturally born on this soil. You cannot be born in another country. They come to this country and say, my parents have been here for 200 years. No. Their parents were. Your siblings after that, but once you're born in another country, you're in a different status. Administrative rule and federal law says it. That's why everybody's been attacking Trump. And when Trump came on CBS and NBC National News, and he's telling everybody, go to the Democrats. They wrote it. Why are you bitching at me? And that's what gets me. Nobody's listening on the immigration because they're trying to turn it because the immigration senators, especially we got Biden and all these idiots here in Oregon that buyouts, and I've worked with some of these people for 25 years, passed up in the Capitol before they got elected into their federal seats. I mean, one of them was a former vet, and they passed administrative rules, so if you didn't get a vet exam every time you went to the doctor, you could go to jail for that. Because he did that to try to raise income, and when I did the research on him and went over to his county and talked to the people, turned out he wasn't a good vet. So if you're a good vet, you don't have an issue. But a lot of these people get in office because they think they're going to make changes for their own pocketbook, for their friends. They're not in for the Constitution. And that is you and I, eventually, if they want to call we the people, but it's men and women that are on this bloodline soil, that our ancestry's blood is in this soil. It's our responsibility to make sure elected public employees don't do this. It's our responsibility to make the sheriff is not arresting people for not having a driver's license or insurance. If they didn't cause a car accident, they didn't run over somebody, cause personal property damage. Who cares? The guy slides off on a dirt road into a tree. Who cares? Tree heals itself. It's an inanimate object, actually, and we go through the psychological stuff. The tree feels this, the tree feels that. I'm not going to let my emotions go in that direction, because that breaks men and women up emotionally in their heart and souls. And we can't do that. They're trying to do that. They spend billions of dollars doing this stuff to you, so that way they know. It's like ADHD fraud. ADHD does not exist because you have attention deficit disorder, so everybody needs to be on drugs. Come on, everybody has attention deficit disorder. And I know it's a fraud because I was one of the original guinea pigs in 70 to 72. Cal Berkeley and St. Mary's Hospital. It wasn't until, 25 years later after all this stuff, and I looked back at my medical records and stuff, and I went, holy mackerel, I can put this and that together. And it's interesting when you say those things and you read back in the history, then you start combining it with what you're dealing with today or other stuff that, we forget or we don't think about, and we don't go back and remember. That's why it's so important to save your records, because your records prove who you are. Without an ID, your records prove your bloodline, and that is the one strongest structure in this country. The only reason why we really haven't been taken over is because of the bloodline to the Constitution. Because they keep trying to say the bloodline doesn't matter, and you've been hearing that on many talk shows. Trust me, I know that. I've argued with so many of these men and women for the last 8 years on these talk shows about bloodline. And they keep trying to tell me that doesn't matter. I'm a first generation. I was born here. I have rights. No, you don't. Here's the law, and I can prove it. And I've done that, and I've got it to Congress. I've served the House and Senate on it. It's been served to Judge Roberts and through Judge Scalia before he was murdered. That we believe that was by definitely Obama, because Obama spent 3 hours before he disappeared, and then all of a sudden Scalia has a pillow over his face. And I can send you that when it is filed with the Supreme Court on the lawful and legal difference, because I wrote that seminar for the Supreme Court, what was that, 5-6 years ago. No, actually, that was right before Judge Scalia got murdered, and it was a month before that, and I had to make sure Judge Scalia had it in his hands before he went to Texas. So, and when I wrote the structure on immigration and stuff, that was 2 years basically of researching other places I've been, which I don't need to get into all that stuff. But I went by the administrative rules. I went through historical records. I went through different things from different counties, cross-referencing, asking people about their heritage and everything else. And the one thing is like, with my family and that type of stuff, everybody's like, well, you're lucky you're not an immigrant, And I said, well, yeah, I had to verify if I was doing it lawful or legal. And that's exactly the truth. Because if I was an immigrant, I would have to I'd still do it on protecting Native Americans. But the other point, I would have to protect the natives that are paying their taxes, following administrative rules, the way it says, because they are mandatory by paying taxes, mandatory by administrative rules until their 5th generation when they have freedom. And that means they can pass their assets and land down with no taxes off the tax rolls. And they don't want you to know that. I'm fighting with the county on that. But I've already proven that. I've even proven it by their own administrative rules, and they're trying to fight me on that because they don't want people to know. Because if the people start waking up to this, their income draining this country's swamp. Because every time you go in and pay something with a debt note, use that credit card, that raises the national debt. And remember, national debt is national British government. Federal government, Federal is the terminology for the British government. United States Congress has a contract with the British government. United States Congress was founded by Washington, D.C., and are founded under the British government, so your senators and congressmen technically are under the authority of the Pope. And before a House and Senate bill gets passed, it has to clear the Pope administrative rules. And that's the one thing that when people go to court and, they want to quote all this stuff, but it's like, stay out of that book, read administrative rules, and if you have to quote what the judges and administrators' responsibilities are to you. Lawful bloodline Native American or legal citizen. And citizen was changed from the capital C, as it is written in the Constitution 13 times, in 13 places in the 13 colonies, versus when it was passed administratively. The 14th Amendment was never ratified. It was passed administratively. So when it was passed administratively, they changed the capital C to lower C, and that's how they were keeping the, whatever he calls them, the native black men. And when people say, oh, they're African, black African, or African Americans, or African natives, no. You use that word as a title of nobility, that's how they throw you in jail and run you around and play all these psychological games, and they don't even know how to keep you in jail because you're out there, don't get what's going on. If you're a black man, say I'm a black man. You don't even say black. If your family's been here since the, 1890s? I'm a lawful bloodline American. They want to put a title of nobility. Don't agree to a title of nobility. Title of nobility is a criminal offense under Congress administrative rules. The only one who's authorized to give any title of nobility out technically is Congress or the Queen of England. And those have to be clarified by the Pope. So when people go, oh, the 13th Amendment, 1312 with the Pope and King John that gave us the Magna Carta. That's England, folks. That is not we the people. Common law gives the judge the authority to decide your case. You don't want a common law jury. You do not want common law judge. You want a grand jury of your peers. Your peers means the people that know you in your community. It doesn't mean the cop. It doesn't mean a public employee. Anybody else that they're pulling off these roles because they're handpicking these juries, and they know who they're putting on. They're putting on public employees. I mean, I've even been convicted for my house being robbed by the cops themselves. And I went back fighting this stuff, and, they're bulldogging me because they know I get it. And so I don't care what they're trying to bulldog on me, but the paperwork is getting filed. It's getting spread out across the country now more and more. It's been publicized in a few major stream medias. And that's the one thing when you are claiming your assets and claiming your rights, when you do an affidavit, you want to make sure when you publicize it and all these notices, don't post them, don't do this. Keep it on the private side. Wrong. You have to let your public employees know your stand. You have to know that they have to know that if they cross the line, they can be shot. And Illinois has one of the best laws so far in the country. Illinois passed a law in the state of Illinois if a cop knocks on your door and breaks your door down, you can shoot him. You're protected. The House and Senate passed that, I believe that was 2 years ago now. There's a couple other states discussing on what's going on because, with these kids that have been getting hurt with these break-ins and they're falsely accusing people of drugs and all this stuff, and they're harming people. If people want to do drugs, turn your back on them. Let them go kill themselves. Sorry. But it's mind over matter. We have to start standing up to this. If you look back in history, I'm old enough that I remember the days when people would do drugs and alcohol. What did everybody do? If they didn't have responsibility for their actions, everybody in the community turned their back on them. Now we're sitting there going with the church handouts and, with these new programs. Oh, these people, they need your help because they're on drugs. Well, the first time anybody did any drugs was a happy moment. First time anybody drank a beer or wine or whatever, even moonshine, was a happy moment. first time, the second time, the fourth time. But then after a while, it became where every time a depressive mood happened, you had an argument, you break up, you went through this or that, had a bad day at work. And then it started being a psychological crash because you start bringing yourself into it. So you do it to yourself. It's not the booze. The booze doesn't have control over you. You have control over you. Trust me, I grew up around drugs and alcohol for 40 years of my life, witnessed all this stuff. I've been in and out of, the entertainment industry myself. I grew up in an interesting structure around that industry myself, literally for years of my life. And so when you start stepping out of the movie and watching how this and that happens, you start waking up to these things. And then, when the man or woman wants to kick the habit, or what they call a habit, they want to start straightening themselves up, that's the point where you help them out. But when they start going back, hey, I can't do this for you, until you start meaning what you're saying. You have to produce the strength in yourself for these things to happen. So as I'm filing on the sheriff's department, this is what I'm putting in these affidavits: their rights, their responsibilities. I even have the Supreme Court out of, I think it's Maryland, that says that the sheriff's department has no lawful or legal authority to arrest anybody. They don't want that out. I do have the Supreme Court decision on that. Some people fought for it. I do have that, and it explains it really well, because the sheriff's department were started after the Civil War. Everybody goes, well, Lincoln had sheriffs. He had private hired bodyguards that they call the sheriffs, because the sheriff terminology comes from England. Remember, the sheriff was the one who used to break down your door and rape, rob, and pillage from everybody in England. And that's what's doing today. It's the same thing. We do have, before I get too deep into that, I would like to think, I do know quite a few elected public servants and public safety officers that honor their oath of servitude. And those men and women need to be praised, but not on a street corner. To praise them when you talk to them. Because when they start getting so recognized, the big boys start going after them. You and I both know how that works. We've seen it around ourselves. So that's where we have to protect them. That's why we have to go after the big boys filing a criminal charge to protect our elected and public employees who honor their oath. See, we have to start waking up to how we're going to save our country. The only way we're going to save it is within. They're draining us from within. The only way we're going to be able to go back at it is within. And everybody goes, oh, we need to write and change the Constitution. We need to put these amendments in. You got all these children groups out there who don't comprehend anything about the children's structure. We need children's reform. How come people are not reading the laws and reading how to use the administrative rules and laws that these women wrote to protect their families? To go after them in school because they're liable. People say, no, they're not. Well, you have to file the criminal charges on the judge, on the clerk, on the sheriff deputy in the courtroom, and any other employee that's touched any paperwork on that case. You have to sue them. File criminal charges on them. And on News.org and Trackers, we have a lot of those criminal charges up. We do have templates up there. And my templates that we put up are totally different than a lot of other people, because I go right to the heart of the matter. We go right into administrative rules. We quote. My talk show is they wrote it, we quote it. So when they wrote it, we quote what they wrote. And so we want to make sure that people comprehend that you have rights. And if you're an immigrant, you have privileges that are protected because you're paying the system to protect your immigration rights. It's learning how the system was set up by our forefathers, stepping out of the movie, looking around, and go, oh my God, it starts working right away. And so they keep trying to get you fighting like the ALCU wants to sit there and go, immigration has rights. They were born here. I don't give a damn what these people think. They don't have rights. I've even proven it to the ALCU. They were supposed to take my case when they tried to assassinate me here in Lincoln County. It was supposed to be set up and all this stuff. And then when I got up and met the director of the ALCU in Oregon, all of a sudden he's calling me piece to piece, and he realized who I was, and he panicked. And like, what? He goes, it's like, because of what I've been writing, what I've been putting out. And because the ALCU, the foundation of the American Bar Association, found, I think it was August 27th, 1871, and their program, if you actually look on their websites and all bar associations, the British registration accreditation of the King and Queen of England. You'll have attorneys and these people that will bluntly lie to you, oh, no, we're not. Trust me, I have the federal law that says this is the way the bar works under Article 1 courts. Article 1 courts are not your courts. Those are legislative courts. You don't want to get tied up in Article 1 courts. And people say, well, all courts are supposed to be Article 3. We know that as the Constitution. But any flag that is flying that gold fringe British flag, gold fringe, and I have the structure from the military that even says when you walk in that door with the gold fringe flag, you leave your Constitution rights, your Bill of Rights, everything at the door. You walk in that courtroom, you're at the mercy of that man or woman that's going to dictate to you if you can leave that building or not. And this is a fact. The military knows it. That's why things are going on, what's going on with some of you guys know what's going on with some things that are going on. We won't go there. Things are boiling and people are looking out. But see, if you don't start protecting your families, your bloodline, making sure that if you own land, filing on your land, you don't want a warranty deed, you want deeds, you want to file under your land. The only one that actually kept lawful legal records was Bureau of Land Management when that was formed. That was formed back in the 1837, I believe it was. And that was starting to put in the facts so that way they could separate land so people had their little chunk of the world. And then when people sold their world and all that stuff, well, sorry. But those chunks of lands are like the Black Hills Gold. I still don't know why the natives haven't filed on the stockholders. Those type of situations, you don't go after them in court for the corporation. A corporation is a dead enemy. We all know that. You can't kick a dead horse when it's bleeding to death and it's already dead. You can't keep kicking it and think it's going to move. So you have to go after the board members. And this is what I've told many chiefs, including with the oil stuff and Dakota and all this stuff, how to go after them. And these chiefs go, well, we're getting the American Reserve Affairs money. We're getting this. It's like, that is already promised to you. They can't cut off the funding. But these chiefs and these men and women don't want to read this stuff. They want to be, in their captivity. They should be out getting deer. They should be out fishing. Get their kids to get their hands back in the soil and the water, knowing what the earth around them is. But we forgot that. I mean, when we grew up, I was very grateful, and probably a lot of you, we had free-range parents. We left during the morning with a school, and we didn't get back till night. We didn't get back till night all day. We know how these things really work. So if we start getting back to the basics of what we went back to, instead of getting confused by all the stuff that we get today with Dr. Phil and Oprah and all these crazy BS talk shows, we can start getting our country back. And that's why they keep doing this. That's why, Ellen, what did she give away? I mean, it's amazing. She gives away $1 billion a year through Las Vegas and her 3 talk shows and her game show. And then people go, oh, we got to flock to this. It's like when Obama was giving everybody free cell phones. And nobody got it. Those cell phones, besides burning your brain out, which is proven now, and there is a federal court case that just came out and said those smart meters at your home, you can get rid of them. It is a crime. And Freedom Talk and smartmeter.talk, I recommend that. They do have really good information out there that Daly has out there, and he does have templates how to get the smart meters off. But the Supreme Court just announced a few days ago and clearly stated without a benefit of any shadow of a doubt, those smart meters violate your Fourth Amendment rights. They spy on you. They tell you what you're talking about in your home. Just like Samsung's TV, radios, and all that. If you don't deprogram them and take the chips out of the Samsung TV computers and all that, they've got you. they can pick that up on that smart meter right in your home. And then when they put fiber optics in your areas, they can pick up on the fiber optic cables, even your credit cards with the chips in them. Because when they went through put the one before the number zip codes, now all of a sudden they have the central tracking device installed. I ran security and stuff. I wrote security plans back in the 80s, and so, when you start looking at this stuff, you start going, whoa, shit, all of a sudden this is happening and that's happening, and we're realizing that we're doing it to ourselves. I mean, I get people all the time that says, oh, I just pay it, I don't care, whatever's going to happen is going to happen, let it be. And it's like, no, and then you're doing it to your child. Well, when a child comes 18, they can deal with it. It's not my responsibility. I just want them to have fun and teach them how to just have fun without education. Most parents are doing that to their children today. Putting them in front of cartoons and TV and video games. Sometimes I do recommend them actually sit down, watch these cartoons, audio tape them, and then listen to them 3 or 4 times a couple days later. And then you start seeing the patterns. It sounds all furry and cute, but you'll start seeing, you don't have to play them backwards, but you can see what they're actually doing psychologically to your children. And remember, Cal Berkeley and all these hospitals around the country, they spent billions of dollars on psychology doing this. And all those structures came from Nazi Germany when they brought scientists over and gave them free homes, free lives, and basically a free penance, for their sins, so they can have their education and knowledge so they can control you here. And that's the one thing, too. We're still living basically we're living no different today than Nazi Germany was living when that was going on. There's no difference. A cop can shoot you at the street, that's what they're doing today. Cop breaks your window, they're telling you can't file criminal charges. You have to, you're supposed to eat the damages that they do to your property. Lies, lies, lies. You sue the cop personally for damaging your property. Now, what state was that? I believe it was Maryland or Wisconsin. Federal judge and it's the federal state judge. And remember, there is a difference of federal state and federal court. In Article 3 court, you absolutely have to get the oath of office. You have to get a copy of their bonds. You have to see how they filed. You have to read what they filed. You do not let a man take or a woman take a federal court case that a jury's supposed to be if they're not legally employed. 70% of your judges right now today that you even see or know are not even federally legal to be in that job. They just put them in there because they know they're going to all of a sudden the public service, the cops have to rape, rob, and pillage you because remember, the police department are the tax collectors for the Vatican. And that's the one thing that people don't get when, they don't let those contracts with the city puts out and the county and the state. And so that's what I'm going to be asking in this letter to the county is the contracts now. Because, see, I've already nailed the sheriffs on that part. Now going to the employer on the other side because the employers are the sheriffs and the county commissioners because they're under the de facto system of the legislative Article 1 courts. So when you start putting all this together and you start seeing how all this starts coming together, you realize that there really are 2 courts in this country. You realize that we are still fighting the British government today. And like I said, if you're using credit cards and that type of lifestyle, you are living, creating a national debt for us, the people in this country. But also, too, the British government is laughing because the only ones that are supposed to pay taxes is the British government. Any immigrant that comes to this country is mandatory. Has to pay it back to we the people because that goes back to the damages. This country has never gone bankrupt. America has never gone bankrupt. But the United States of America Incorporation has. And the United States of America Incorporation is run and owned by the Vatican and the Queen of England, not by we the people. And if you go look that up in the Supreme Court, it'll blow your mind out. And that is, I forgot what the code is, but it's 3202, and federal, I don't have it in front of me, because I've been fighting my computer again. The one thing, I got to get another computer because I've been under attack on my computers because they know what I'm doing, they don't like it, and so I I don't care what they like. That's the one thing when I'm going after the Oregon State Governor right now, Kate Brown. You can type in on Facebook. You go to Facebook, recall Kate Brown. And when you go on that page, you'll see the deal where tax guy tells all this IRS agents not to tell anybody taxes are voluntary and to destroy that letter before anybody else gets it, which I got a copy of. They don't want you to know the fraud that they're portraying on you. And most of us don't even know the fraud because we've been educated in it so much, and some of us have been employed in it, and, we do this, and we have to apologize to family members or the people that we personally know. Sorry, I have to take your kids. Sorry, I have to do this. Sorry, I have to do this my job. No, it's not your job. When it comes down to it, if you are a Constitution public employee, if you are a statute code administrative thug, then that's your job. But if you're a Constitution man or woman employee, that's not your job. I do have enjoyment when I'm watching some of these videos the last 2 years where the sheriff's deputies are actually standing up for the people when they got other public employees trying to tell them how they need to be arrested, they're disturbing the peace. Oh, yeah, I always love it when they say, you're trespassing on public property. Okay, well, this is one thing that gets to me about the public and private side. Well, if it's public, and we're supposed to own it like we do the National Forest, BLM cannot own a stick of land. I even have the videos from their attorneys that says they have no legal authority even to pack guns, and this was by Congress, by their own attorneys saying this. And so they don't have authority. Your state police, when you go hunting and fishing, they don't have authority out there to try to arrest you for hunting and fishing. And that's our responsibility if people are what they call poaching. What is poaching? Poaching is a structure that came from England. In other words, if you take something off of the Great Spirits and Mother Earth soil without the permission of the British government or some religious organization, you're supposed to be punished for it. In this country, we're supposed to be we see a deer or elk and we're hungry, but we do have to monitor population. But they've been letting all these people come into this country, and they've been logging the hell out of this country and sending all of our wood to foreign countries, making all this money, and that money technically is supposed to be going to us. I mean, when they were logging in Oregon, they started giving public land over to timber companies because all these timber companies are like, we pay taxes. That's a lie. But they were paying taxes on the sale of the timber. But then they gave the House and Senate passed administrative rule in 2001 and started giving over public land to these logging companies and stuff. Now you're on the tax roll, you're going to pay. Now they're going to put up all these gates and fences and all this stuff to say we don't have a right on our land. It's our land. They can't sell it. They can't trade it. Public land technically cannot be sold, and if it's being traded, it has to have authorization of the community members. Not mayors, city council. City council and the mayor cannot vote for any tax increases like we're all getting across the country right now. There is no tax representation. And that's the one thing that I've been considering, and I think we need to do across the country, is to put a ballot measure that all elected and public employees cannot vote, period. Or the other one, besides not voting, they cannot be part of any grand jury investigation or grand jury indictment process on a man or woman that has been charged. Because all you're doing is putting the fox right in the hen house and saying, go eat, have fun. We'll come back and pick you up later when you're full. And that's exactly what's going on. So it's so important to read these administrative rules, read what's going on, comprehending what the Constitution means versus statute codes and administrative rules. Statute codes, I even built my house. They went after me on building permits and all this stuff, and I said, prove it. You don't need a building permit. I'm not a commercial agency. I'm not making a commercial zone for this property for the state, the county, or anybody else. I filed on this, and I'll get that newspaper article. I had a newspaper article that ran for 3 straight weeks in the paper. That's the 21 days. Claiming you don't own me, I own myself, I own my birth certificate, and that's when I started filing identity theft. Anytime a public employee uses my name for anything, I'm filing identity theft on them. It's a crime. A sheriff cannot have contact to you even in a mortgage situation. He's not even supposed to come to your house. He can't represent the bank to steal your land for the bank that's paying him more than what he's worth. That's the one thing that, we've got these laws and administrative rules, but the Democrats for the last 25 years, and it's the Republicans too, because they're all sleeping in the same bed. Come on, it's all an argument. With the Second Gun Amendment, we've been watching that argument for 30 years. And so it's time for us to stop it. And we, the people, can stop this by filing the criminal charges, go after them personally. And then, yes, we do have authorization to sue them in the corporation standards. But you have to file the criminal factual complaint first. And once you've done that, you've made standing. Now you have jurisdiction. And that's the other part, comprehending what jurisdiction is. Because when you go into a court, what is the judge jurisdiction for a traffic ticket? He has none. That's why you want to question jurisdiction. I have jurisdiction laws up on our Facebook, our website, do.org and trackers. We do have the Facebook site, elected and public employees, the United States of America Republic elected and public employees oversight. We have the Civil War, 1866 lawful bloodline American. And then I do have the recall Gabe Brown that's been still bouncing around, and now Gabe Brown is only tracking that one now, the terrorist acting governor of Oregon. She's only trying to put us into another $1 billion of debt so she can have the party money that she wants to go play with. And then we I got the other one, what is that, the Civil War, we got that United States, that's covered. Oh, yeah, and then we have new Oregon trackers that's on Facebook, too. And all these things have files on them, they have House and Senate records on them, so that way, you can see that they sent it to me, they wrote it, we quote it. So I'm not trying to change, I can't change anybody else's work, because like I got White House Club, and I got other groups that do wonderful videos, but they're lawyers and stuff like that. I really don't like to deal with it too much, but they're finally starting to stand up. Some of them are finally starting to represent their men and women correctly. I don't want to say they're clients because they're not clients. Because, there's a difference of a client and somebody just being set up to be raped, dropped, and pillaged. The client is what they use psychologically as a plain word to the general public. Is knowing what the words mean going back in history, what they mean in the structure, going back to when things were actually written. I mean, everybody goes, well, Christmas has been around. Christmas was started in 1841, downtown London, Macy's department store. Christmas started. Santa started. They needed sales. So they came up with a wonderful idea to do that. And then in 1905, that was starting to really come over here and be pushed in the stores when they were doing that. And yes, Christmas was started then. And people say, oh no, it's been around for 100 years. Well, I keep asking people proof because I've done the proof records, the search going back to legislative council and all that, the structure with England and the finances, and researching where, what, and how. So I've done the research what and how. So that is the point that until somebody can show me, I'm not talking something that was written by somebody. I'm talking things in the archives of the federal records, that goes back further. Because they started keeping the archives in the federal records in, since the Constitution time and everything else going back. That started in 1774. And they've kept all this stuff. But when they were doing the Paper Reduction Act across the country, they were destroying our evidence, our facts of our bloodlines, our history. And you have to realize that birth certificates didn't really get issued and start being issued until 1940. And that's part of the Executive Order and the Bankruptcy Act, because the Bankruptcy Act, they wanted to make sure that immigrants were paying back the debt for what they took and borrowed. But then these people came and raped and robbed us on our soil. We didn't create debt. And especially in the South, we didn't really create debt because most of the Northerners all had their arms and their ammunition and everything. We didn't have that structure. And there's still discussions going on with the South and North. We don't pay taxes. That was the whole structure. There's a lot of things, but I don't want to get into that topic. That's another time if that comes up. But when you start reading the instruments that I provide out there for the general public, you will definitely see that everything I'm bringing to your attention right now, I can prove and verify everything. And also, too, like I said, I do have experience in elected and public service myself. I have been elected in public service myself. And I have recalled government bodies, going after them for embezzlement, racketeering, fraud. They've changed administrative rules because your local committee, your local school committees across the country have authority over your school boards, have authority over your principal and teachers. And the local school committee are the lawful group that they had to put in the 1968 Board of Education structure when they put the education board together. Because prior to the education board, the local school committees were the local people in our communities, and if they didn't do something right, the teacher didn't get a chance, they were gone. Not going to have to go through these administrative rules, to protect the domestic terrorists that are harming the children in us. And that's the one thing that people have got to realize, that, instead of arguing about these tidbits or this man or this woman needs counseling and they need to know. They need to know the truth, why they're doing it, and they need to pay the consequences for it. Because if we go back in real history, if somebody killed somebody, they had to make it up. That means they had to go milk the cows, they had to take care of it, build roofs, take care of the family that they harmed. And that was punishment back then. And that's what the punishment was here in this country by the native. And this is the one thing that sort of stuns me when people don't know our history in this country. Everybody wants to quote foreign history. Everybody wants to put their foreign holidays in and go against it. I want to see native teaching back again. I want to see the Indians, our American structure. And it's not just the Indians, because you got to realize, other colors were here for the last 300-400 years as well. I mean, that is the one thing that everybody wants to try to coordinate something or try to make something sound like it's racism so we can make a dollar off it. And it's like, you don't attack things by religion. You attack it by the Constitution. That gives you the authority. Were you somebody wanted to add something, or? Just moving around, okay. But the one thing is that when you start putting these things together, and you start going by the Constitution and realize the Constitution was to protect the lawful bloodline natives. That's where all the treaties are found now. And if you do your history, most of you probably know it, I'm a preacher to the choir on some of this stuff, probably a lot of it. But the treaties and the Constitution supersedes everything. And so that is the one thing that supersedes administrative rules, it supersedes a judge, it supersedes, anything. That's why the Constitution is my Bible. The Constitution is my religion. Because the Constitution has rights. The Constitution gives you your freedom. The Constitution gives you the right to feed yourself without asking permission to pay your public servants. It gives you permission to travel without paying the toll fees and privilege tax. And there's a lot of men and women I know who travel who don't pay toll bridges when they go across the bridges and stuff. They have a paper, they serve them. And if they want to do that, they just call the local police and have them arrested for, highway tax toll, because that's a federal crime, and that comes from England. I mean, that's the one thing when we stand up, then we say, well, we need to pay for all these roads and stuff. No, we don't. This is what I'm filing on the county, too. I want to know where the money is, because, see, I know when you buy that gallon of gas, at least up here, we're paying, let's say we're paying $3.20 a gallon up here, and we know $1.70 is straight off the top taxes, right off the top. That's not including going back to the oil fields, the owner, and everybody else down the pipe. So, and when they come up with all this, that we need all this money, it's like the state of Oregon, and I can verify this one. We were at the Oregon State Capitol in 2005, and the state of Oregon Department of Transportation misplaced $500 million. Then they did it the following year. Oh, how do you misplace $500 million? It's not. People track this stuff. It's been computerly monitored for well over 15 years. So it's already been in place. A lot of these things have been in place to protect us. But now we got people using it against us. It's like the Clintons using the voting machines, because Bill Clinton was the one who ordered the voting machines. we keep seeing what happens with those people. I just don't comprehend why they're still here, but, I figured they would have at least left the country, but, it's like, we cannot keep doing this for the bloodline of your children, my ancestry, your ancestry. Because, like I said, if your ancestry goes back past 1890, your family has blood on the soil. So if that matters that your ancestry actually means something to you, prove it to the next generation by educating them by the circumstances of the real facts, not hearsay evidence. And that's the one thing that, I was fortunate growing up with that, because we weren't allowed hearsay evidence. We did that, we got thumped. It's like, you don't play that game in this house. And so that's the one thing that people need to step back and focus on. If you're not familiar with this stuff without file criminal charges, because if they do get arrested and kidnapped and held for ransom, and they take your covered wagon, that's called grand theft auto. So you have to file grand theft auto on the tow company. You have to file grand theft auto on the clerk and the cop. Hey, remember, the clerk who processes it, even from the city, county, and state, and the tow company is liable because they're involved in committing a federal crime. The laws are there in place. And these men and women know it, but they know that you don't know it, so they can get away by committing these crimes. And then when you start putting this stuff together, then they try to do a lot of other things to you, try to keep you shut up. But that's the one thing. Like I've been here since 2013. I've been dead 3 times. I was just on life support July 8th for 6 straight days, and then got out the 7th, for my lungs and heart shutting down again. It's like, I know what they're up to. I know what's going on. We're not ignorant to the fact. The one thing is, I know I'm not done yet. They know I'm not done yet. And that's the purpose of filing these instruments. And when you talk about documents, everybody says, well, you need to file this document. I stay away from those people. I'm not docking a ship from a foreign port. That's where the word document comes from, is docking a ship to a foreign port, asking permission. And then when you go to the court, then you're paying a tariff fee to come on land. That's how it works. So when you're paying a tariff fee to come on land, and I have the laws on that if you're lawful bloodline American, court fees, the courts are free to you. I have the laws on it, administrative rules. We'll get them to you. But see, this is the one thing, you don't abuse this stuff. You have to comprehend, you have to have faith in yourself, know how to properly talk about it, not be scared. And you start doing this, next thing you know, they turn away and walk away from you. And once you start suing them, then that gets out there. I mean, I know people have done this. I know people that, they travel all the time without licenses, period. And a marriage license, stay away from that. Because when you get a marriage license, you're giving the state the authority to decide how they want to divide your funds and how much they're allowed to take. Exactly what it means. So do a contract, a marriage contract. If you want to do a marriage, do a marriage contract. But don't do a marriage license. A license is like a car. A license is like a business license. It's like any other license. It gives you the license to have a relationship. And if anybody knows the old terminology for the word duck, that I didn't say it correctly because I don't know about the wording on the line here. But it comes out the fornication under consent of the king. Still exists today. The queen has all that still hanging in her palace. Everybody knows that in England. I don't know why we don't comprehend that. I mean, I grew up with those type of signs. My mother used to have different other words on those things, and so did other relatives because they got those signs, put them up when they were growing up in the 70s. But it's interesting when you step back and you look at this stuff compared to what we're going through, what we're realizing, and how we have to fight this battle. But fighting a battle is learning how to file your paperwork, learning what court to go to, learning what the courts are. I mean, we have so many different courts, technically, for probates, and then we have, we have our housing courts, and then we have your administration courts. And And so when you go in front of an administrative judge, you're giving that common law judge the authority to decide what he wants or she wants to do to you. That's why you want a grand jury trial. You want men and women of your peers, and you have to file for that. You have to file for that. These public servants, they're not going to help you out because they know if they start doing that, their paychecks are going to go down and down and down. I think, people today in public service jobs, when it used to be all the way basically until Clinton took over and started doing all these high boost pays, the average public servant made 3/4 of the average wage earner back then, and he got 100% medical and dental and burial fees for his wife and immediate family. That was it. They don't get the stuff they get today in these little party paid packs and all this other stuff. We're getting taken to cleaners, and so they're bleeding us up from the inside out in our own country. That federal debt note that they keep going is like, you need to fill this and you need to do that. Stay away from those contracts. And when you buy land, stay away from mortgages. If you can buy it from a landowner, do it that way. And if you have to pay some with the federal debt note, so make sure you pay some with gold and silver. At least a minimum over $100 of silver and a minimum over $500 of gold to own your land. And then that way, that could be registered in the Bureau of Land Management. Then they have to give you a loyal title. And so this is the one thing to comprehending how our system works compared to what we think it is or how we look at it. And everybody wants to get out there and try to tell you that you need to go through this process or that process. I know a lot of you guys out there have heard this from other people. A lot of you people have bought programs and all this stuff from people. They didn't work. You've seen a lot of other people that go into jail. I've been involved in a lot of these people. I've suggested a lot of these people how to file these lawsuits. They keep running to attorneys, and no offense to religious people. God's going to take care of it. Well, God just gave you the weapons through another man or woman, and you don't even see the education that's passed on to you that you asked for, and you're still going to go through that channel. You didn't appreciate it. See, that's the one thing. If you believe in that stuff, when people hand you information, you ask for it, it comes to you. Learn how to use it. It's your responsibility. That's why, like I said, when people want to be drugs and alcohol, I don't have sympathy and compassion. No way in hell. Because if that's what they want to do, that tells me they don't love their children. That tells me that they don't care about themselves. I've been around people that have had some issues. I do comprehend when life gets to the point where sometimes you can lose it for a couple of weeks, taking a break from it and figuring out it to come back to figure out how what happened in life. You got to analyze it. But that's common sense. But we don't think about that to help somebody who does that. We go, you need a program. You need to go to a drug and alcohol program. Those things don't teach a damn thing. Most of the drug and alcohol programs, you go there 5 minutes, they say, hey, everybody wants to go. Everybody who goes, yes. And so the instructor goes, everybody needs to come over and put their initials here. So 15 minutes, they're out. Some of them have these long classes for an hour or two. But it depends on what region and district you are. And if you notice that it's so difficult nowadays to get hold of a senator and congressman or a state representative, because everybody says, this is my district only, and I don't have to do that. That's Parliament, man. That's not even of this country. That's the devil's work. For those people who believe in the devil and that, I just look at the evil people because, it's like back in the 1800s when people did that, our public employees would actually go up and shoot them right on the spot in the street. And that's in our history. And so that's the one thing I don't, it frustrates me when people don't know history, but then I have to step back and people remind me, history has been so rewritten so much in the last 30 years. It's like Columbus never came to this country. And we have Columbus Day for what? To celebrate a man who rapes, robs, and pillages? And so we got different structures like that. And so instead of sitting there complying with these things, we need to change it. They gave all these federal holidays. Now they're trying to get 3 more federal holidays. They're trying to push. The Democratic Party is trying to push for 3 more federal holidays. These people are underpaid. They're overpaid and underworked, and that's what they are. They're public servants. They're not in the private sector. They don't own their businesses in what we call the free market. And I don't want to get into capitalism because capitalism is a legal way to rip off one another. That's what it is. It even tells you that in wall clubs. It even tells you that in Wall Street Journal. I mean, when you read these articles, it's a legal way to rip each other off. That's how they get away with it. And the other thing, too, and I have that, and we're going to be putting that up eventually. I have the laws that where they say when you go to a public servant, they won't take your pennies to pay your taxes, and it's going to take them 8 hours to count it. Federal law says they have to count it. If they don't, they're terminated. The laws, we have laws there that are there to protect us. The reason why they're getting away with it because they've been sitting there wiping this off administrative rules because nobody's been applying it for so many years. So if they change it and they can change the wording, and within 10 years, next thing you know, it disappears unless you've got the original paperwork. That's why the Paper Reduction Act, they did that across the country so they can get rid of all the paperwork they had so they can reduce it by throwing it out to burn it. Burn the history. And so they have people that have been rewriting this stuff for the last 24 years now, putting them on hard drives and different things like this, rewriting history. And most of these men and women who are in these jobs are foreigners that were hired by the foreign agency in the United States to rewrite history, to change our history. And if they can convince you that you don't have a bloodline connection on this soil, you don't have ancestry for the blood of this soil, they win. They're going to sit there and take this country away so fast. You know, sure, it's like everybody else. I would love to be out there in a war. I've been through a few of them. You know, street fighting is what I used to do in wars. I was a bodyguard and bouncer. But the other point that comes back is that why do we have to sit there and keep abusing ourselves because one famous man said the pen is lighter than a sword. We can do that by their own administrative rules. So when you know a sheriff or a police officer that's violating his servitude, he needs to be filed on. As soon as they say, well, we're going to dismiss the charges and we're going to do that, then you need to file on those men and women who are doing that. And there are places in higher channels you can file this stuff too. They don't want you to comprehend and know that you have these rights, including immigration has these rights. Clarify, we illegals have no rights to anything, including food in this country.
Okay, Ed.
Go ahead.
We're running along on this, and I'm not trying to cut you off because you got everybody's attention. But can we bring you back on another show where you can pick up from here?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Because I know there's a few might have questions for you. And
oh, yeah, we can do a Q&A answer another night next week or something. No problem.
Okay. Well, real quick, let's see. Chris, do you have any questions for Eddie Johnston or Ed Johnston?
Eddie's fine.
Okay. Chuck, do you have any?
No, sir, not at this time.
Now, I tell you what, you're a wealth of information, and I did not want to cut you off, but we've been running an hour and a half.
Oh, yeah, I didn't even pay attention to the time.
No, that's great because that's why you're on here. You know the Constitution. You worked for the Senate. You worked for senators. You've done it all. And your information is spot on. A lot of stuff I already knew about. Greg, do you have any questions for him?
No, I'm just making lists of things I've learned. So I'm just, I think at some point maybe we'll do a recap. But I know we got to get on to Chuck's probably got some cues, I imagine. I don't know about that. But yeah, I'm listening.
Okay. Patriot Cowgirl, how about you? Oh.
No, I don't have any questions. I might at a later date. So yeah, a Q&A show would be really awesome because I know down the road I'm going to have some questions for you, Ed.
No, I figured that. Well, you got my information to get a hold of me too. So you can always send me something too, and I can bounce it back. And please, when I pass information to any of you, share it, pass it on.
Okay, and again, your show. Give them your show one more time and the days you're on.
Okay, my show is every Saturday and Sunday, 5 p.m. Oregon time, 8 p.m. Eastern. And that is on Oregon Trackers on YouTube. And then our call-in number is 641-715. I gotta think about the last four here a second. 0864. And then the code to call in is 994745. I should have wrote that thing. I wasn't prepared for that one. I wrote that down, but you can, like I said, we do have it on my website on new.Oregon Trackers. We do have the YouTube channel. You just click on the YouTube Oregon Trackers, and then we have the link to just click on the talk show, and I'll bring you in and the phone numbers and stuff. And on my YouTube channel, Oregon Trackers, when you click onto that, we do have the phone number of the talk show and the password codes in that link, as well as other information. And when you do your affidavit, you always want to claim that anybody alter it, that you can sue them, they're liable, and the only one that can alter those instruments are you personally with a witness autograph, and that's basically what my stuff is written and set up like.
Okay, well, I appreciate that. Tom, you got anything you want to add? Evidently, Tom's not there. Okay. Folks, again, I want to thank you for being with us tonight. We still have cues to read, but I do want to remind everybody that next Wednesday we will have gentlemen that the only one that has ever beat BLM at their own game in the state of Texas. BLM was kicked out. Ken is going to be our speaker. He is the one that sued BLM and won in federal court, and federal courts kicked him out of the state of Texas. However, there's other, we'll have other guests. We'll have the Hammonds with him, and he will be giving out information to where anybody that's getting screwed around by BLM or Forest Service. They are illegal entities in the United States. Yeah. And this whole thing is going to come out, and you will be able to actually have law that was placed and implemented in Texas when they beat the lawsuit. And this is federal court. State can't beat federal court. Federal overrides a state at any time. Now, with that in mind, Chuck, go ahead and go. Let's go through the cues and stick around if you would, Eddie, and listen to the cues and see what's going on. I appreciate you, my friend, and thank you so very much. You were eye opener, and actually, I'm at all on the information. So, yeah, go ahead and Chuck, and let's get these cues done.
All right, sir, we'll do that. Am I being heard?
Yes.
All right, good. I just want to make sure I'm being heard. Okay. We're going to start with Q253. Should not take too terribly long to go through these cues, but there's some interesting stuff here. Okay, first of all, Q number 2053. Q posts, and he starts with a link to a www.whitehouse.gov actions, presidential proclamation, National Preparedness Month 2018. A rather lengthy proclamation that the president himself signed. Things suffice it that basically the document declaring the month of September, which as National Preparedness Month. Interesting that Q would post that. I think he's attempting to make us aware that big things are about to happen. Okay, 2054. Okay, it starts off with a tweet from the CIA's uh, channel, and it says CIA officers work as scientists, support staff engineers, economists, linguists, mathematicians, secretaries, accountants, inventors, cartographers, architects, psychologists, police officers, editors, graphic designers, auto mechanics, and more. And then Q gives the link to that. 55. Okay. Interesting, because this is actually connected to something that was going on at John McCain's funeral. It says it must be hard to communicate. Now, if you were watching the funeral, there were quite a number of big name deep staters sitting there. It must be hard to communicate. Every moment together is a moment you should not waste. Why? Because their time's coming, folks. Presidents are still able to arrange shifts at SCIFs. A shift, in this case, special room of some type that they build, where they can either go inside these things and they're soundproof and they're not bugged and what have you, and they can communicate with each other, or they can look at classified documents. They have shifts, several shifts, if you will, at the Capitol building for use by the Senate and the House of Representatives. Okay. Does the American taxpayer foot the bill for the 12 hotel rooms in close proximity to the central shift? Okay. These deep staters had rented 12 hotel rooms, and they had a where they could meet. SS details ordered at max perimeter depth. Okay, so they had Secret Service details positioned around these things. Okay, nice color choice. The shame the windows had to be blacked out to eliminate that view. So the windows on this shift were apparently blacked out, but Q thought they had a nice color choice. That Q team, Trump team knew about that these people were meeting, and so on. They knew all about it. 56, Q posts and simply says, Ezra Watnick. All right, now Ezra Cohen Watnick, National Security Advisor to Attorney General Jeff Sessions, and former Senior Director for Intelligence Programs for the U.S. National Security Council. All right, so he just posts Ezra Cohen Watnick, Q. Then in Q 2057, he repeats Q 2056 and then adds to that bridges connecting people. NewYorkTimes.com article, Ezra Cohen Watnick, Justice Department National Security Advisor. Okay. Now, Q 2058. Okay, it is a Twitter tweet, a post from Ted Lieu, whoever that is. It says, "Dear agents," this was 9 May 2017. "Dear agents of the FBI FBI Counterintelligence Division, stand strong in your investigation of Trump and Russia. Our nation is relying on you." Well, no, we're not. Okay. Firewalls, 1 through 4, the firewalls that have been talked about in recent Q posts. And Q is going to mention firewall number 3 and number 4. Bill Priestap, counterintelligence, Strzok's boss, cooperating witness, power removed. Firewall number 4, Peter Strzok, director of counterintelligence, FBI, cooperating witness, fired. Here, folks, is that the firewalls have been removed. Their system is breaking down, and it's just about time that their time has come. 59 is a link to a CNBC article says all Facebook executives who announced departure in 2018. Okay. Q says at least 7 senior Facebook executives have announced their departures this year. Nothing to see here. And then he has DARPA in the kill box. Now, DARPA is the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. A lot of these high-tech gadgets, like, drones, we could name a lot of other stuff, or a lot of these high-tech gadgets and high-tech weaponry and stuff like that comes from a lot of black budget projects. That's DARPA. But Facebook is also a DARPA platform. It was created by DARPA, okay? Q 2060. He repeats 9, and then he adds to that more connections being made. Sergey Brin, founder. He's the founder of Google, born in Moscow, was married to Kiki, interesting name, and watch Kiki, 23andMe founder, was brother-in-law to Susan Wojcicki, CEO of YouTube, DARPA. YouTube is another DARPA platform. Some of these social media platforms like Facebook, okay, DARPA platforms. 2061, he repeats and then adds a article, Google's true origin partly lies in NSA research grants for mass surveillance. Q. Okay. Let's see, Q 2062. Okay. He repeats and then adds to that DARPA in the kill box, aka Google. Google is also a DARPA platform. How might DARPA, aka Google, play a role in campaign against POTUS? Gmail. Think Gmail drafts. ES resignation. That's Eric Schmidt's resignation. Eric Schmidt. Let me think. I think he's. No, wait a minute. Which one he was? Okay. It will all connect eventually. Okay. 2063. Here's where it gets interesting. U2063 is a YouTube link. Oh, okay, by a group, I guess, called Magic Sword, is in the face of evil. Now, it's an instrumental song, but Q posts that, and he says, by Operation Specialist, okay, Operation Specialist, Special Operations, Spec Ops, okay, pre-event, okay, so there is an event that Special Operations are about to engage in, Okay, something to do with deep state arrests, something to that effect. We have received some intel on that. Divulge that intel at this time. Okay. Q2064, one of the Anons on the 8chan post, and he's talking about Q2063, and he said, talking about that song, and he said, why did I get extreme goosebumps while listening to this? And Q adds a image of a long line of helicopters, military helicopters they're helicopter gunships actually, but they're also used for moving personnel around. And the name of it is ST6.GPG. ST6. So apparently SEAL Team 6 is involved in these operations somehow. 2065, Q2065. When you bring up the link to that video, that song, it shows a sword called the Magic Sword. Okay, and it's got in the middle of the sword, it's got like an all-seeing eye emblem. And again, the song is "In the Face of Evil." Okay, so that's after. Okay, all right, and Q agreed. So the triangle and the all-seeing eye in the middle of that sword. Okay, Magic Sword YouTube song, right? And Q acknowledges that, and then yep, that's what he wanted you to notice. Okay. Q2066 was an interesting thing. Now it's telling us both chambers, okay, both chambers of the House and Senate session tomorrow. Okay, then it was dark. Now there is light. Well, it's a coded message. There is a C3 in a kill box, an A5, an S6, a D1, an E2, and an L4 boxes. Well, the numbers, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, tell you where to place the letters. Letters together, you come up with D, D, E, C, A, S, D class. The what Q is trying to tell us is that tomorrow, both chambers, the House and the Senate, will be in session, and the president's session is also in capital letters. The United States, one, and I believe it will probably be the president of the United States, is about to declassify the full IG report as well as the FISA reports and the FISA memos and the FISA warrants. He's going to declassify those documents. Okay. Names. Okay. Number 267. Okay, is an image of a QAnon frog, the green frog, and it said, "Here it comes." And then there is an image of a tweet by President Trump himself that says, "Democrats, none of whom voted for Jeff Sessions, must love him now." With Lion James Comey, Dems all hated him, wanted him out, thought he was disgusting until I fired him. Immediately, he became a wonderful man, a saint, like figure, like in fact, really sick. Okay, and yeah, and Q adds the red wave before midterms. To that, with love comes trust. Schedule changes, very painful. Stuff's about to happen, folks. That's why I suggested that you popcorn ready. Okay. Now, Q2068 has two links. One is to a BBC.com article. Syria, this was September, 2 September 2018, says Syria blasts at Meza military airport, not Israeli strikes. Okay, Syria has denied reports that a series of blasts at a military airport near Damascus on Sunday were from Israeli airstrikes, state media say. The loud blast reported at the Meza airport were caused by an explosion at a munitions dump, Sana news agency said, citing Syrian military sources. It was the result of an electric fault, the agency added. Has launched airstrikes against Syria in the past and was accused of targeting Meza airport last year. The airport is believed to house Syrian Air Force intelligence. On Sunday, the head of UK-based monitoring group, Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, Rami Abdul Rahman, told AFP as a military airport was struck by a possible Israeli missile fired across occupied Golan Heights. Okay, but as it said earlier in the article, that was not the case. The other link in Q2068 is to tweet by President posted today, 3 September 2018. Al-Assad of Syria must not recklessly attack Idlib province. The Russians and Iranians would be making humanitarian mistake in this potential human tragedy. Hundreds of thousands of people could be killed. Don't let that happen. Donald Trump, Twitter, and then Magic Sword. Nothing to do with the op carried out by those SEAL Team 6 that we mentioned earlier. No idea at this time, but there's a connection there because it says Magic Sword Q. Mine is a graphic FBI chain of command for mid-year investigation. It starts with FBI Director James Comey when he was Chief of Staff Jim Rabicki when he was Andrew McCabe, Special Counsel Lisa Page. All these people have been removed. Okay, NSB EAD, whatever that is, Michael Steinbeck, Counsel Jim Baker, Counterintelligence Division Pre-Staff Randy Coleman, LB Deputy Director Tricia Anderson, okay, Agent Lead Peter Strzok, Supervisory Special Agent Sally Moyer, and so on. Okay. Graphic showing all that. And then he says FBI and DOJ corruption, Federal Bureau of Investigation. James Comey, Director, fired. Andrew McCabe, Deputy Director, fired. Jim Rabicki, Chief of Staff and Senior Counselor, fired. James Baker's General Counsel, fired. Bill Priestap, director of Strzok's boss, cooperating witness. Power removed. Let's see. Cooperate. Okay. Power removed. Peter Strzok, deputy assistant director of counterintelligence, fired. Lisa Page, office of general counsel, fired. Fired. Forced. Mike Cortan, assistant director of public affairs, fired. Josh Campbell, special assistant to Comey, fired. Michael Steinbeck, John Cal's Coney, however you pronounce that. Randy Coleman, Trisha Anderson, Smith, Trisha, Sally Moyer, all those are pending. Department of Justice, Chief of Port Control Section, Security, Clinton email investigation, fired and forced out. John Carlin, assistant. Head of DOJ National Security Division, fired, forced out. Sally Yates, Deputy Attorney General, Acting Attorney General, fired. Mary McCord, Acting Assistant Attorney to DOJ's National Security Division, fired, forced out. Bruce Orr, Associate Deputy Attorney General, demoted 2 times. Cooperating witness, power removed, termination imminent. Associate Attorney General number 3 official behind Deputy Attorney General Rosenstein, fired, forced out, nothing to see here. Okay, and then you got PDB, Presidential Daily Briefing in a kill box, Q. So who ordered all this? President, after receiving his daily briefings. Okay, folks. All right. 70. Pay close attention to this one because it's a repeat of a cue from May the 17th, 2018. What is the common theme when bad news against them? Q. Stay vigilant. Q. Okay, possibly flags. So we got to all stay vigilant. Okay, now this is the brand new one. This is the final one, but it's the brand new one. Go Q2071. Starts off and says the experts would appoint a second special counsel in D.C., aka the corrupt swamp. So remember, you probably noticed there's a lot of them wanting a second special counsel appointed. But it's known that if that happens, it would take years for anything to come of it. Several years for anything to come of it. Would appoint the second special counsel in D.C., aka the corrupt swamp, team of less than 20 typically, and a wait of 2 to 4 years. Take a gamble. Appoint a second special counsel, aka the corrupt swamp, because unlike Clinton email corrupt case, as demonstrated by the FBI, DOJ people fired and removed, this will be fully and honestly like Mueller in a kill box. But Huber correctly interviewed several witnesses, therefore by Sessions, and therefore the Inspector General is not genuine. But Sessions and Huber are following standard DOJ ongoing investigation policy by not discussing, making public. So therefore, nothing must be happening. Fire Sessions. This is the narrative being played. Ability to prosecute grand jury outside of D.C. 90% plus voted 2016 who already began the investigation last year. A team of 470 investigators, attorneys, plus IG, plus legal jurisdiction across all 50 states is not a special counsel, so therefore nothing is being done. But sessions via Twitter, so therefore he is not working. Therefore he's not. Okay, wait a minute. I mean, but posts is attacking sessions via Twitter, working on behalf of the people's interest. Okay. D's/left love trust sessions. Okay. That's in the kill box. That's the narrative being played out right now. Interestingly, if nothing is being done behind the scenes, FBI and DOJ officials being fired and or removed from their respective positions of power. AG, Attorney General Jeff Sessions, who must sign off removal. DOJ in charge of FBI. Interestingly, if nothing is being done behind the scenes, why are there now 50 plus thousand, actually it's 51,700 folks, sealed indictments across the U.S. equals USA V.X. Now, honey, that was my wife, folks. Let's see. Coincidence versus Huber. But interestingly, if nothing is being done behind the scenes, why are many powerful CEOs, members of Congress/Senate resigning? Coincidence? Example. Pre_POTUS did the Speaker of the House indicate wanting to leave politics. But interestingly, if nothing is being done behind the scenes, why are human trafficking arrests surging? There have been thousands of them, folks. Okay. Clickbait and opinions versus logical thinking. Direct communication necessary. Trust yourself. Think for yourself. And we go all Q. These are cues for the moment, folks, and interesting stuff going on. Back over to Johnny now to see if he has anything further to add to what we just talked about, John.
Excuse me.
Yeah,
Can I add one thing real quick before you jump on?
sure.
Forgot to bring up to we pay attention. 10 days ago, the United States Supreme Court came out and told everybody to arm themselves and to carry a sidearm. The Supreme Court just stated that.
Wow, thank you. I heard something about it, but I didn't know if anyone else had that. Damn, Eddie, I appreciate that a lot.
Oh, yeah. That's the one thing that you said. It's paying attention to what we think it is compared to what we know it is.
There you go.
So, anyhow, I'll mute myself.
Okay, well, ladies and gentlemen, tonight we had a very interesting show all the way around. Our special guest, Eddie Johnston, he will be back. I guarantee he will be back. Actually, he will. We were talking about becoming a member of our staff. As soon as we can figure out how to get him logged in, he's having technical difficulties because his local police physically invaded his computer while they had him in jail. But anyway, that's a whole nother story for the next show. But I want to thank him. I want to thank you, Chuck, for the cues. I want to thank all of the members. Tonight we have Flat Top. Flat Top, I'm glad you're in here this evening, and welcome back to the show. We have Chris. We have Chris, who is not able to join us because normally he works, but he had the night off. Chris, thank you very much for being with us.
No problem.
And then we also have Pete, who is an advisor to President Trump. And he is also the gentleman that made it possible for this radio show through connections. Greg, I want to thank you for being here. Greg Clark, great guy. He has a lot of connections, a lot of places, from movies to you name it. He's an author. He's a representative. He's a little bit of everything. And I want to thank our Patriot Cowgirl. She had to leave. She had things she had to take care of. I want to thank her for being on and helping out. And Tom, you're usually not lost for words, but I want to thank you so much for being here also. And more than anything, I want to thank you, America. United Constitutional Patriot Radio Show, where you get the true news and you get vetted speakers who don't talk about what happened to the other people, but what actually happened to them, with the facts and the court records to back up where they've been, what they've done. God bless America. God bless our show. And folks, remember, you want the true news, the real news? Come to us on YouTube, United Constitutional Patriots, YouTube. And with that, Chuck, I will let you close our show out in prayer.
All right, sir. Lord Jesus, we come before you right now to thank you again, Lord, for this opportunity that we've had to do this great work here. We thank you, Lord, for what we know is going on in Washington, D.C. right now, what you're doing for this great country, what your anointed Donald Trump is doing for this country. We thank you, Lord, for the great works that are happening right in front of us right now, something that we never thought we would see, and we're living to see it. Lord, we ask you to continue with us now throughout this night and throughout the coming days. Continue to guide us, guard us, and direct us, draw us ever closer to one another and ever closer to thee. For do you ask it in Jesus' name? Amen and amen. Thank you, Jesus.
Amen.
I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in to the United Constitutional Patriots radio show. Our next show will be on Wednesday, 6 p.m. Mountain and 5 p.m. Pacific.
Actually, I think
God
it was a
bless
great show.
you
What do you
all,
guys think?
Patriots, and have a great
It was
night.
great, but I don't think Pete gave us the all clear yet.
Okay.